The Dallas Stars had a successful season and now hope for a big playoff run. Dane Lewis of Locked On Dallas Stars joins us to discuss Dallas's prospects for the postseason. The Locked On Road to the Stanley Cup continues as we welcome Dane Lewis from Locked On Stars to take stock of Dallas's chance to make a deep postseason run. And Dane, what do you think is the biggest storyline for the Dallas Stars heading into the playoffs?
There's a lot of different ways you could approach the biggest storyline. I think for me and for a lot of other Stars fans, it's the captain, Jamie Benn, who's had a remarkable season. He'd kind of had a few down years, especially after, the Stars went to the Stanley Cup final, 2 or 3 years ago in the bubble. He'd kind of been, it seemed, on the decline. He's starting to get into his mid-30s. And so everyone thinks, well, Jamie Benn, he's still a good captain of the team, but his production offensively has kind of taken a hit. But he's come out and he's been one of the team's best players, effective on the power play, scoring 30-plus goals for the first time in a long time, really, ever since he won the Art Ross Trophy, almost 8 years ago. And he's just been such a huge piece for this team on all sides of the ice, all aspects of the game: penalty kill, power play, 5-on-5. And I think he's going to be crucial to this team here in the postseason. Maybe not the most important player, but you just look at how the Stars got into the position they're at, and it has to do with their leadership, and that all starts with Jamie Benn.
What is the biggest reason why your team will win the Stanley Cup?
I think the biggest reason, if the Stars are able to win the Cup, it's going to be because of Jake Oettinger. We all saw what he did last year in the playoffs against the Calgary Flames. I think he could have continued to do that had the Stars been able to win that series, and he's carried all of that on this regular season. Just recorded a shutout on Thursday night in the regular season finale against St. Louis. He's been the rock for this team this season. He's won them several games that maybe they had no business winning, but Jake Oettinger is the engine, I think, that drives this team, and he's going to be a guy that the Stars lean on every single night in this postseason, and what is hopefully a long run. And so I'm excited to see what he can do with hopefully more than just 7 games here in a playoff schedule.
And what would be the biggest reason they would not win the Stanley Cup?
I think, with Jake Oettinger, there's also the defense, and I feel like that's kind of where things can get a little shaky, is the defense in front of him. Obviously, you have Miro Heiskanen, who's a top 10, maybe even top 5 defenseman in this league, but everyone else after that, it's kind of like Miro Heiskanen, Esa Lindell, and then it's just kind of like a shrug fest, if you will, of you don't really know what you're going to get on every given night in terms of the consistency defensively around the crease and in tight. Jake Oettinger can make a lot of impressive saves, but sometimes his defense can leave him out to dry, and sometimes that has cost the Dallas Stars several different games this season. They're starting to play a little bit better here down the stretch of the regular season, and I think they closed out really well. Obviously, the Stars have won 6 straight games, so there's something to be said about the defense, but that's probably the most concerning aspect to me if teams out there are looking for a liability on this Stars roster.
Is there one player of those bottom 4 defensemen that gives you a little hope?
Yeah. There's actually a guy that just recently has been called up, Thomas Harley, who's been in the AHL all season. He's been playing very good on both sides of the ice. His defense, I still think, needs a little bit of work, but he's a big body. He's young. He's got long arms, long legs. He knows how to use his stick, and he's almost kind of like a younger version of Miro Heiskanen. He kind of has that vision offensively. He can pass really well. He can shoot. And so he does give me a little bit of hope. And sometimes we see really good performances from the other guys, Yanni Hakanpää, Colin Miller, Ryan Suter. It's just a little inconsistent at times. But I think that this is a mature veteran group that knows, it's going to take more to win in the playoffs than it does in the regular season. So I think there certainly is room for optimism. But still, at times, you don't always know what you're going to get.
And who is the key player to watch on the Dallas Stars this postseason?
I'll stick with the defense. I think it's going to be Miro Heiskanen. I think there's a case to be made for Jason Robertson as well, if you want to talk about skaters on this team. But Miro Heiskanen has been one of the best defensemen in the league this season, especially over the past month. I think he's top 3 in points scored since the start of the month of March. He's just been a absolute weapon on the power play, 5-on-5, penalty kill. He can skate with anybody in the league. And I think he's going to be the driving force for a lot of the offense that gets created for this team. because a lot of times he's out there with the top line of Pavelski, Hintz, Robertson. But even if he's out there with a third or fourth line, he can still make things happen. And so I think he's going to be a big player to watch. He was a huge key component for this team a few years ago when they went to the Cup final, and I expect that to be the case again this season.
What would a successful playoff run look like for your team, and what's at stake if they fall short?
I mean, I think a successful run is conference finals at the very minimum. It's hard to say Stanley Cup finals just because the West is so kind of wide open with teams like Vegas and Colorado. Even Minnesota has come along over the past month or so. And so it's going to be much easier said than done. But I feel like anything less than a conference finals appearance is a disappointment. And in terms of what's at stake, I mean, there's obviously a lot at stake. And, a lot of teams, it takes some teams a while to get back into this position that the Stars are in. But I feel it might sound a little ambitious, but I feel like the Stars are kind of in a place where they're starting to enter a championship window. A lot of these young guys on the team that are kind of the cornerstone pieces have recently signed contract extensions. Jake Oettinger, Rope Hintz, Miro Heiskanen just last season, Jason Robertson. They have Joe Pavelski coming back for one more season. Wyatt Johnston, who has 24 goals as a rookie this year. He's obviously going to be a big piece of this team for a while. And they have more young pieces on the way, like Logan Stankoven, who, besides Connor Bedard, was maybe the best player at the World Juniors a while back. So, I mean, there's obviously a lot at stake because you want to have a good playoff run. You want to win the Stanley Cup, but I don't think this is a 1 year, one opportunity window for the team. Although you would like to see them go very deep and show that they can compete with these other juggernauts like Colorado, Edmonton, Vegas, so on and so forth.
All right. Well, Dane, thank you very much. That does it for our Dallas Stars preview here on the Locked On Road to the Stanley Cup. Be sure to subscribe or follow Locked On Stars for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. The Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.